Since the attainment of political independence in 1960, Nigeria, just like most countries of the African continent, Nigeria has fought several battles, including the avoidable civil unrest that lasted about 30 months. These sad events culminated to major setbacks that slowed the pace of national development and affected the fabrics of social cohesion and national integration. This, however, was subdued by successive military regimes which stabilized all fronts of the country. But the re-emergence of political rule in 1999 after prolonged military interference began to give rise to regional, tribal and sectional agitations characterized by tendencies inimical to the collective aspiration of the attainment of nationhood, and the country began to experience internal security challenges with the offshoot of Boko Haram terrorist group which spread across the northeast region. Later, the agitation of the proscribed independent people of Biafra, IPOB, banditry, abductions and other heinous crimes against the Nigerian state, which have continued to engage government and national security forces in finding lasting solutions to the prevailing crisis with growing threats of these syndicates to national peace and integration. Despite these challenges to nationhood, the Nigerian government has remained resolute and firm in bringing the situation under control through the application of non-kinetic approach to the restoration of peace and security in parts of the country. Tonight on the program, we'll focus on some of the measures deployed by government to keep the country united and instill the culture of understanding, tolerance and love for one another as panacea for indivisible nation. My name is Omini Odan. Before we begin, let's take a listen to this background report put together by Naja Atu Tijani.
Gory headlines and breaking news which break hearts. The recent spate of attacks in the country have raised cause for alarm. Worried by these incessant attacks and violence across the country, the National Security Council, in a meeting convened by President Muhammadu Buhari, seeks to critically examine and find new ways of surmounting these challenges. While details of the meeting are still classified, the dire reports from traditional and social media requiring the Department of State Services, DSS, to issue an advisory, part of which constitutes a daily reminder of the role media plays and why action will need to follow the meeting. In the advisory, the DSS says it will no longer tolerate plans by what it calls sponsored subversive groups to throw Nigeria into anarchy. Previously, security operatives have had to subdue one of such proscribed groups predominantly in southeastern Nigeria, a saga which played out on social media with several Twitizens tweeting mixed accounts and giving an opportunity for fake news to go viral on the app. Despite several campaigns against fake news, the phenomenon continues to thrive, with several incidents being distorted. Hate speech is another trend which the DSS also addresses in its advisory, saying even though democracy allows for free speech, it does not allow for reckless statements which can potentially undermine security. These statements also abound on social media, with traditional media outfits also being fingered by groups and some media personalities such as Skadaria Ahmed, who warns that ethnic profiling in reports can lead to polarity. Experts also say the media has a major role to play in keeping the peace, a message which was revisited during World Press Freedom Day. As the DSS says, there is no need to engage in acts inimical to the peace and sovereignty of the nation. Rather, all hands should be on deck to support an indivisible and united Nigeria. In the meantime, the nation awaits the outcome of the National Security Council meeting to proffer solutions to the security challenges while promoting peace and harmony.
Strengthening national security and integration is the focus of the program tonight, and people will say the indivisibility of Nigeria remains sacrosanct. It's Tuesday Live, and at some point our phone lines will be displayed on the screen, and if we're told to you, please turn down the volume of the television set and go straight to the point. No rigmaroling, and please be polite in your contributions. Also tonight, you can be part of the conversation through our Twitter handle at TuesdayLive NTA. Also, in sustaining the conversation, we shall be doing a couple of reports across the country. And today, for information, we shall be doing Oka, Benin, Maiduguri, Lagos, Kaduna, and Calabar. I'm being joined with a team of guests in Abuja and also via Zoom outside Abuja, beginning with Ambassador Obizoba Chimelu. He's the Director General, Strategic Planning and Implementation, Ohaneze Ndigbo General Assembly Worldwide. Good to have you on the program tonight.
Thank you very much.
Also tonight, there is the Force Public Relations Officer of the Nigeria Police Force, CP Frank Ba. Good to have you on the program.
Good evening. It's a pleasure being here.
Okay. Brigadier General Mohammed Kabril Galadanchi, retired, security consultant, public affairs commentator, former Director General, the Director of Defense Headquarters in charge of transformation. Welcome to the program. Also tonight we have Major General Augustine Agundu, retired, former Commander Operation Safe Haven. Good to have you in the program. Professor Femi Mimiko, Department of Political Science, OAU Ile-Ife, and former Vice Chancellor at Adekunle Ajashin University, Ondo State. He's joining us via Zoom. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, moderator.
Okay, gentlemen, let's begin. And like I said at the opening, we always hear the statement, the indivisibility of Nigeria remains sacrosanct. Frank, this is not your first time on this discourse, and I will ask, beginning with you, what brought us where we are in terms of security challenges in the country? What would have happened?
Well, I think it's a mixed bag. If you want to know why we are where we are today, you need to look at where we're coming from. And it's not an answer that one can answer with a single statement. First of all, we've always had a lot of pepped up angers. There are people in this country who generally believed that they are politically excluded. It could be factual, it could just be perception. But you know, if you practice public relations, you know how strong perception can be. There are those who believe they are economically excluded. It might be fact. It might just be mere perception. It might even be fiction. There are all kind of fault lines that ordinarily, if we manage very well, could actually make this country a big, better and more prosperous nation. But some people are actually exploiting these fault lines. If you look at our history, like the history of most African countries, Nigeria is not a mono-ethnic country. It is a polyethnic country. It is made up of different people with different ethno-cultural background. But again, we've also seen Somalia, which is more like a mono-ethnic, mono-religious country, and yet they still walked that path. But for me, our multi-ethnic nature can actually be harnessed for greatness and can actually become a major force for driving development in this country. But beyond all this, for those of us in policing, you also see that part of the tensions are also as a result of political violence, thuggery, terrorism, the use of drugs, breakdown in family values, cultism, which is gradually turning Nigeria into one big violence factory. The presence or the proliferation of small and light weapons, which can also be traced to so many factors, from the collapse of the Libyan regime to the total destabilization of the entire Sahel region, the continuous movement of both goods and persons across our borderlines. And most of these persons that move, they move with arms, they move with drugs, they export crimes, they export violence, they export terrorism. And so there are a lot of factors contending here. And then those of us who are in the law enforcement agencies, again, have come to the realization that we can't do it alone. While we are dealing with while we are dealing with the crimes, which oftentimes are actually symptoms of even bigger and deeper problems, we also expect the politicians, the policymakers, parents, the different socialization agents to also deal with the root sources of crime.
Okay, let me just hold it there, Frank. We'll come back to you for other perspectives. Let's go to Brigadier General Galadanchi. Listening to the first public relations officer speak and marshal out the points, what would have been responsible where we are today? Now, this whole thing started, it was as though it was a northeast problem, later spread to the north. Today, gradually, it is spreading to the southeastern part of the country. And we ask, should that be the trend? Why should we allow it to get to this level? We have an audio challenge there. Now, let me go to Ambassador Chimielu. We'll get back to Galadanchi. You are of an ethnic nationality, and one of the points, Frank, the first player raised, ethnicity, drugs, cultism. What is your group doing? Are you fanning the embers, or you're looking for solutions?
Thank you very much. He has spoken well. The major challenge.
A factor that has worsened pursuing the social media that Abuja Kaduna road is beyond .90% of the reports that are coming through the social media are false and are fake. And unfortunately for us, we have conspirators to these issues. There are about 5, I can always say. One, the foreign conspirators, whereby they don't want to see Nigeria getting where it is supposed to be, so that they will be the leader in Africa. They are not sponsoring anything, but they capitalize on the information they get out of the country. Then you have the political class who think that if they are not occupying an office, let the nation not be in existence at all, unless they are holding those offices. Now, in the political class, there are two different sides to it. You have the opposition who always want to capitalize on something so that they can get political advantage. Then you even have those within the government who are not happy that they are not getting what they think if they're in government they should get. Then you have we the elites. We the elites, we always think that there is something that we deserve to get. And the moment we think that we did not get that thing, you will see us doing everything to hit back either on the government or on somebody so that they will say, we'll do. That is why you see that a lot of us are reposting things that we cannot verify. Then you have the media themselves, the mainstream media, that do not, the younger ones of these days, do not, especially in the private media, they do not go out to do diligence before they can publish anything or report anything on this thing. Then finally, you have a citizenry that has been made to believe that fighting negative is what will take them out of the way. But religious leaders, instead of them to be preaching to us on what we should do to be good citizens, they have become social critics of government. So, in reality, there are crimes being committed in this country, and we need to address them. We need to tackle them. Government needs to do something about them. But you cannot achieve this unless Nigeria and Nigerians are ready to accept other people as brothers, as sisters, as countrymen together. Otherwise, we will continue to this is profiling. It is IPOP. It is what do you call them? Fulani harassment. This and that. Criminals are criminals, and we must be able to identify them as criminals. But we should stop bringing in sentiments or bringing in things that will raise the temperature within the system, instead of we as leaders sitting down to see how we are going to be able to bring solution to the problems that are there. You can see somebody who wants to be a governor or who wants to be a president, instead of coming on the air to say, it's all right, this thing is happening in so place. If the government can do this, or if I am in that place, I will do this. No, what we come out to do is to point hands, to accuse somebody for doing nothing, just for the mere fact that we just want to be heard.
Thank you so much. Let's get the perspective of Major General Augustine Ogundu, still on the same direction.
I want to appreciate the submissions of CP Frankenba. That is quite apt, direct to the point. One major area we have failed to appropriately manage is our diversity. We have failed woefully as a nation to manage our diversity very well. And that is, as a people, as leaders, as whoever that it is that we are expected to have put in the right things in place in order to manage this number of the population strength that we have and all whatnot. Now, CP Mba talked about drugs, and drugs suddenly has become part of almost a daily consumption. We see different types of incidences that we're getting regarding the consumption of drugs as if it's become another kind of food supplement amongst our youth, which gingers them to commit this wanton violence and destruction that we're talking about. Now, I have always had a situation trying to understand one major problem, one major issue where we got to where we are today, and that is the gradual polarization of our people along ethnic divide. That's fault lines, just like was earlier on mentioned. People are manipulating those fault lines for their own selfish ambition, whatever it is that they are out to gain. And that is not helping us as a people. And do not forget that others are watching the pulse of the nation. There are even when we so seek for foreign interventions or foreign help, or they are watching the pulse of the nation through their own opinion polls. This is what we are talking down on ourselves as a people. I cannot remember any country that can come out in the air and then run down its people as if we are a bunch of people without any brain. And that goes on to the elite class. Most importantly, and very, very important, we must know that it's the nation that gave us the platform to project whatever we think we have. Whatever educational qualification that we think that we have, whatever level of education you are, first of all, the nation gave you the platform to project yourself. And how far have you been able to pay back the nation for the sacrifices given to you? We have gone through this over and again, and it's not giving us anything, but it's a case of pull me down syndrome. It's not going to help us as a people. This nation is a great nation. We have sacrificed a lot to keep the nation as one indivisible entity. But because some certain situations whereby some people feel that I'm not in the vanguard of this and that, and then the next thing is that every other person must go down with me. That is not helping us as a people. So the manipulations of the psyche of the ordinary people is giving us a lot of headache. I believe that we can, as a people, get our acts together and decide which way we will further. And that is all by dialogue. Everything, even the Second World War ended on negotiating table. Everything that happens today, every wars that we have seen, every campaign, every battle that we have ended up on the negotiating table. So why go the length of causing a lot of havoc and killings and wanton destructions and all what or not in order for you to project yourself? It will not help us as a nation.
Much, Major General Augustine Agundu. Now let's come to Ambassador Obiozoba Chimelu before we go to Professor Femi Mimiko. Now, seeing you on this program, a lot of persons will already imagine your direction. Sipimba talked about a host of issues. Brigadier General Galadanchi, same thing, and very last, Augustine Agundu has also retreated that. And one emphasis he has made is, no matter what, it's about galvanizing the entire groupings to ensure that Nigeria remains one. And if we're talking about strengthening national security towards national integration, it's about everybody. So what really is the advocacy currently by your group, the Ohanese Ndigbo General Assembly Worldwide?
Thank you very much, and thank you, viewers at home. Just like my friend Mba has said earlier, there are fundamental issues that need to be addressed. Insecurity didn't start yesterday. What here we can remember during the unrest in Niger Delta and the kidnapping and hostility during the government at that time, the measures they put in place to tame the insecurity, calling of the Niger Delta Youth Summit at Calabar, integrating the youth and discussing the issues of security. You don't talk about security without reaching out to the people. Security is the work of everybody. The elder, the young, the youth. We have to integrate our people. The government have to let the people know their programs and activities, because the security agencies have been diminuted. The police is no longer comfortable to wear their uniform on the street. The military, who are fighting and defending the territorial integrity of this country, the press are also not doing good, because so many times you go on social media, you see that there are a lot of fake news than good news. And fake news is one fundamental issue that can cause anarchy in any country, anywhere in the world. America is fighting for fake news. Europe are fighting for fake news. Nigeria is not essential. We believe that if we can put our people together, let the people know the program, integrate the youth, because the security, the people who are there, even in Boronu or in the southeast or the southwest, by the time you get to some of them, you see that they're not average between 20-something, 30-something, who are take up arms against their own people. And I think there's need to change the attitude of the way we're fighting security in this country, or else we may be doing the same thing at all the time, we may not get good results.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Let's go to Professor Mimiko. And clearly, like we say, when all this started, we gave an illustration here. If you throw a pebble in the market square, by the time it is dropping, it will not know which ethnic nationality you come from. It will not know which political party you belong. It will not know which security outfit you belong to. So security is everybody's business. Prof, now the very recent is the Greenfield University in Kaduna. And we ask, if this thing has taken a different dimension, schools, despite the Safe School initiative by the government, we also have the Safe School program put together by the United Nations. What can we do to stem the recent trend of kidnappings and banditry in schools?
Well, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Let me just say that, unfortunately, I didn't hear the last two speakers but one, but I know that we're all talking about the issue of security. I'd like to start this way, that the security situation in the country has gotten to a very, very atrocious level, and I'm not sure there is any Nigerian that is satisfied with what we have, and everybody wants a situation that will get something that is much more agreeable in terms of the security presentation of the country. But let me try to put all of this in context, because it's important to know where we're coming from before we can begin to profile solutions and relate them specifically to the question you asked. I think a few issues are clear, and I think it's important for us to get this very clearly. If we want to really tackle the security situation, we must understand the nature of the challenges we face, and that's why it is important to put in context. A few critical elements that are noteworthy. Number one, when you have this type of situation, it's a consequence of what I call social exclusion. A lot of the population, a good percentage of the Nigerian population, is simply alienated from the system. And you can take a look at the whole gamut of the entire society. We have 13.2 million people, children roaming the streets rather than being in school. We have more than, 33% of youth unemployed. Even those who are employed, salaries are not easy to come by. And when the salaries are paid, they're not even enough to get people to. And so you have a lot of social injustice in place in the system. It didn't start yesterday. It has always been there. And we need to address this fundamental issue. It's also important to note, again, that what we have today as insecurity is, to all intents and purposes, a critique of the system, armed critique of the system. People who have no other means of survival have simply taken to crime. All manners of crime, all manners of extremist ideologies, they're having a field day, because most Nigerians are simply alienated from the structure we have created that has failed to provide social justice for the people. It's also important to note, again, that we have not done well in terms of the way we have managed the diversity of this country. We have mismanaged crisis in such a way that situations, otherwise benign situations that we could have handled in a more professional and strategic manner, we allowed them to get out of hands. We created monsters, for instance, in this Boko Haram, by the actions that the Nigerian state took. The way we approached the young man in the Nnamdi Kanu, put him in jail and all of that, we simply, we lionize him. These are issues we must find a way to address. We also must know that there's a fundamental dissonance, and this is very critical, between the Nigerian state and the Nigerian society. The Nigerian society is basically plural and heterogeneous. It can only be run effectively by a constitution that recognizes that diversity. Now, if you want to graft a centralized, a unitary system of government on a basically plural society, you continue to have problems. Because as any event, this century, as Jeffrey Sachs and among others have said, is the age and the century of self-determination and nationalism. And so we cannot run away from that. And so if we want to find solutions to these problems, we must not only adopt the kinetic approach, which you said, which you mentioned in your introduction, we must also find a way of addressing issues of social justice, issues of appropriate governance, issues of alienation. If we bring all of this together, we then will begin to be able to articulate strategic approaches to resolving these very, very bad security situation we have found ourselves in. Now to the issue of education, it's particularly worrisome that the schools, the universities have become targets of bandits, of terrorists, of all manners of extremist players in the system, non-state actors, because we already have a bad situation with our education. I just mentioned that 13.2 million of our kids are out of school. In many parts of this country, women are not even encouraged to go to school. The few of them that are in school, now that this issue of kidnapping of students is gaining momentum, it becomes a big issue to persuade people to go back to school. And so government has to do everything possible to ensure that we find a way to moderate this situation, get us out of this messy security situation we are in. But I think it's important that we know that kinetic approaches alone will not solve the problem. We must begin to address the issues of social justice. We must begin to recognize that people have a right to want to, talk about self-determination. It does not suggest that it's a pathway to breaking the country. That is not true. And so we must recognize all of these technicalities and specificities before we can begin to address the major challenge of security in the country. And the final point I'd like to make, again, it derives from your introduction about this so-called indissolubility of Nigeria. Again, this position has been canvassed severally, but it's ahistorical. There's no history to back it up. There's no evidence to back it up. All manners of countries in the past had broken down into pieces. Even a nuclear power, the Soviet Union, broke into pieces. Small countries, Sudan, broke into, so we shouldn't be talking about that. What we should be addressing rather is how to bring social justice, the type of situation that will put those who are alienated from the system and have chosen to take up arms against the Nigerian state, how to placate them, bring them back into the fold, such that no person, as the Americans would say, is left behind. Thank you for that opportunity to make that contribution.
Well, Professor Mimiko, and at this point, I must say we have set the tone and the direction clearly. One major thing Professor Mimiko has talked about and across board has been the issue of social justice, inclusivity, and indeed he has talked about the management of the nation's diversity. But before we sustain this, let's take a couple of reports. When we come back, we begin with the core issues that have been raised, and the focus once again is strengthening security and national integration in the country. Our first report coming from Awka, Anambra State says the state has in recent times been battling with the challenges of security, which has negatively affected the socio-economic lives of its citizens. But there's direction towards solution. Let's take a listen.
Southeast Nigeria in recent time is being challenged by a myriad of security threats with its attendant negative effect on the social and economic well-being of the people. Anambra State, no doubt, is not insulated from this unwholesome development, as various security formations across the state have witnessed coordinated attacks resulting to destruction of property and sometimes loss of lives. Some of the areas affected include the Zone 13 headquarters Ugbo, and series of killings, kidnapping, and other heinous crimes, which prompted the governor of Anambra State, Chief Willie Obiano, to impose curfew in some communities of the state.
I urge all citizens and residents doing business in these areas to comply with the curfew accordingly. I reassure you that we will surmount these challenges.
All efforts have been put in place in order to mitigate the threats to national security.
In Oka, the Anambra State capital, economic and social activities have been slowed down due to increase in the rate of criminal activities, a situation many believe will pose serious threats to the peace and development of the state if not nipped in the bud.
This insecurity is alien to our country. We are not known for brutality and for this kind of things. It is a thing that came in as a result of people trying to undermine others.
And I believe it's time that we need to return back to God and return back to godly values, that we understand that it's righteousness that exalts a nation.
Some of the concerned citizens attribute the security challenge to erosion of social values, high unemployment, lack of orientation, among others. They urge relevant authorities to create an enabling environment for industries to thrive in Nigeria.
And from Oka, we go to Benin, Edo State, where the government, in collaboration with key fact actors on security matters from across the local government areas, addressed the spate of criminal attacks, which has undermined socio-economic well-being of the citizens.
Edo State, like other states, continues to experience a spate of violent attacks across its jurisdiction. This trend assumed a dangerous dimension from the beginning of 2021, when criminality, particularly kidnapping for ransom, became a booming enterprise. Murder, cultism, rape, farmer herders clash, trans-border crimes, and armed robbery have also become more common. Many, as a result, have lost their lives, properties worth millions of naira, while all others suffered various forms of molestation. The incident of the Nigerian American kidnapped and killed after ransom had been paid, the kidnap of the head of service, the rape and murder of Vera Omozua, and attacks on communities and farmlands in some parts of the state are some examples of this notorious trend. It is in response to this security challenge that the state government inaugurated a vigilante network where key actors in local communities were co-opted to secure their spaces, gather intelligence, build trust, and ensure adequate security across the state.
The idea behind the community vigilante network movement is for us to have a vigilante unit across these communities, just to make sure that no part of Edo State is habitable for criminal elements.
With this arrangement, there seems to be a light at the end of the tunnel, as corroborated by these respondents who have agreed that security should be a collective responsibility.
They come from my area, not the area with the hot before, but now everyone don't come down.
This is work which all of us will join hands together and support them.
Crime rate has been reduced, actually. They are doing a good work.
Do is to report any suspicious movement of any persons to the security agents. And the security agents should be alive to their responsibility.
As the war against crime and criminality in Edo State intensifies, observers want government not to relent, but to instead press on until a new climate of safety returns to Edo State.
From Benin, we go to Maiduguri, where it is said, apart from the Boko Haram insurgency, which has bedeviled the northeastern part of the country, especially Borno State for over a decade, point-of-sale attacks, tricycle theft, gangsterism are some of the emerging trends in criminal acts, mostly in the state capital, Maiduguri. The sustained conflicts as a result of terrorist activities and other criminal elements overstretching security forces and causing untold hardship on the people. The report.
The over a decade-long lingering Boko Haram crisis has virtually affected all facets of human lives in the region, particularly Borno State, the epicenter of the insecurity. However, concerted efforts of both federal and state governments, as well as renewed vigor of the military, assisted by members of civilian joint task force, vigilantes and hunters, succeeded in restoring significant peace to many parts of the region. There is surge of insurgency attacks recently on communities and military bases as the lingering insecurity is now metamorphosing to another act of criminalities in the state.
A number of casualties on the part of our military is what is worrying us, because these are men who have sacrificed, who have left, their loved ones to come and, serve the nation. So we shouldn't allow in Nigeria for these bad elements to take over, our silence and our security.
Emerging security threats of incessant attacks on POS operators at gunpoint, attacking people known to have withdrawn money from banks, tricycle theft, and gangsterism are some of the emerging dastardly criminal acts going on in Maiduguri, which relevant authorities are trying to contain.
There are other decisions that we're taking, other strategies that we're taking, which we are not going to make public. But the police has taken cognizance of this ugly trend. And I want to assure members of the public that in no distant time, the issue will be tackled.
Intensive community policing, surveillance, and vigilance, among other approaches, are required in addressing the security challenges.
The community members need to be sensitized, and then they also need to pass information as a when due.
We cannot always rely on military action. We really appreciate and commend the effort of the Nigerian military in what they have done.
Stakeholders are of the view that security operatives should be on guard to stem the tide of rising insecurity and criminalities being faced in recent times for the maintenance of law and order.
The reports there from 3 centers, and we said when we return we'll do social justice. But can you achieve or attain social justice in a country like Nigeria, multi-ethnic, and what have you, when we have guns all over the place? And I go to CP Frankenba. There are guns everywhere in the country, and the question we ask is, how did the guns get to this extent? Is the police empowered enough currently to see what can be done to check this, maybe to do withdrawals for some peace to be attained?
I think you asked 2 questions.
Yep.
First of all, you built a premise and said, in a multi-ethnic group like Nigeria, can we ever attain social justice? And that, for me, is a very general question, and so I'll try to answer that question before I come back to the issue of how to deal with the proliferation of weapons. And to the first question, I say, yes, we can. We certainly can achieve social justice in this country. It is about us. It is about our politicians. It is about how we play our politics. And it is about how we go about conducting ourselves within our country. And each time I look at the issue of social justice, and how we can attain national cohesion, national unity, and national integration. I look at 3 countries within Africa. I don't want to bother myself with some of the more perfect examples outside the shores of Africa. I look at Somalia again as number 1 case study. For me, Somalia is a very good example of the worst case scenario. And so I urge our leaders and our politicians, our policymakers, to always put the map of Somalia and perhaps some of the images from Somalia by one corner of their office, so that when they are driving our policies, they will be thinking, if we go the wrong way, we may just be heading the way of Somalia. Then I also want them to put, in looking at the African map, I want them to also put a very bold inscription on Rwanda. For me, they should pay attention to Rwanda, not the genocide Rwanda, not the civil war Rwanda, but the post-civil war, post-genocide Rwanda, and look at Rwanda as an example of a country, as one of the best examples of how to exit crisis and attain national unity, national cohesion, national integration, economic progress, and social justice. Rwanda might not have achieved a perfection in this, but if you look at Rwanda today, it is cited as one of the best example of a country that is properly governed. If you look at the foreign direct inflow, foreign direct investment inflow into that country, you will be amazed. And again, if you look at the dichotomy, the gap, the inequality gap, and the ethnic dichotomy between the Hutus and the Tutsis, you've seen how it has shrinked over time. And so we can study that country and see how we can replicate some of those policies and even improve on that and try to narrow down the widening ethnic tension, the widening ethnic gap in Nigeria. And then finally, the third country I want our leaders, our politicians, and policymakers to constantly put on front of their table is Botswana. Botswana is a resource-rich country, just like Nigeria. It has a lot of diamond. But how did Botswana manage its diamond that is not suffering from resource costs, like so many other countries that are resource-rich? Why is Botswana not having resource costs? Why are they not suffering from resource costs? Why have they not suffered the issue of blood diamonds like we saw in Liberia, in Sierra Leone? Why are they not having the issue of resource costs as we have seen in Nigeria and so many other countries that are rich in hydrocarbons? These three countries, for me, are examples of countries that we need to look at. Look at one for entirely bad things and keep constantly warning ourselves and reminding ourselves that we don't want to go into this road. Look at the other one as an example of how to walk past and pull yourself from the brink of collapse into something good. And look at the other as a perfect example of how you should build your country and your nation. Having said that, I will say it is possible for us to achieve national cohesion. Let me tell you something. Every time the blood of a Nigerian is spilled, every time a member of the Nigerian military is killed, a civilian is killed, a police officer or any member of other law enforcement agency is killed, every time we have these clashes, we suffer a depletion and erosion of our social capital.
Okay.
And so we must hold that.
Let's hit the point on the issue of gun
rolling. And then
running.
the issue of weapons. Yep. It's heartwarming that even at the highest level, the government is doing a lot. I mean, yesterday we all woke up to the announcement of the creation of a center, an arms control center. And so for me, that center, I don't know General Diko, but I've read his profile as put out on the internet. And I think with that kind of profile, with his exposure both in the Nigerian military and then at the UN level, the ECOWAS level, at the peacekeeping level, he has got all the contacts, all the experience to drive that center. Having said that, I believe that center will help to coordinate activities that will help in dealing with formulating policies that will help us to tackle the issue of proliferation of weapons. But like I've canvassed in some other fora, it is important that we deal with the issue of our border controls. tighten our security at our borders. It is also important that we deal with the issues of our waterways, considering the large expanse of seas around us and the fact that not less than 4 states in Nigeria are littoral. Then the current Inspector General of Police, IGP Usman Akali Baba, is working with his counterparts in the Nigerian Navy in that regard. The good thing is that this current IG was the former AIG. He was a one-time AIG in charge of the Police Maritime Command. So that has exposed him to the intricacies of some of the crimes and the arms trafficking that happens across our territorial waters. So he will be working with his counterpart to block all the loopholes in that regard. But our land borders are key. Our boundaries with Cameroon, our boundaries with Chad, our boundaries with Niger Republic, and our boundary Benin Republic, Niger Republic, Chad, and Cameroon. We need to look at all the loopholes in those areas and tackle them. Okay. And we must continue to work with our neighbors in these countries, work with multilateral agencies, the Interpol, the AFRIPOL, the WAPCO, and also use the instrumentality of ECOWAS to also try to have common front in dealing with this. And looking was again the illicit local manufacturers or arm factories in Nigeria. What do we do to them? How do we turn these bad boys to become good boys? Or if we don't want to clamp down on them completely, because the more you clamp down on them, the more they go underground, the more they create problems for you. Can we find any way of turning their negative energies into positive energies? Can DICON begin to hunt some of these talents and pull them into the facilities of DICON and begin to train them and utilize them as positive forces? Okay. So, and like other people have conversed, we must combine core law enforcement approaches with non-core law enforcement approaches to deal with these numerous problems and challenges facing us.
Okay. Thank you so much. Now, Ambassador, from what the first population officer has talked about, it dwells now on sincerity. And one of the concerns raised in one of the reports we took earlier looked at the issue of erosion of social values in our society. How can we restructure it and bring it back? Because I know very well, before now, the laws are not written. You could feel them. Even when something happens, you don't need to have the police around. Somebody imagines that if I do this to be wrong, but it appears that is not happening. Sincerity and the restoration of social values.
Thank you very much. Just like what Prof said about social justice. Social justice is key to finding a lasting solution to this insecurity Nigeria is facing today. There is a disconnect between the government and the people. We must understand the fact. The fundamental issues here is that there's a disconnect between the government and the people. Because the government needs to galvanize the people. It's not just setting up a center to manage the firearms. Then you have to reach out to the grassroots. You have to talk to the people. You don't stay here in the capital, in the state capital, in the federal capital, and set up committee and remain here and believe that somebody in Abuja will know what is happening in my community or my local government, definitely not in Anambra State. Or something that is happening in Boronu or in the Oyo or Ondo. No, it can't be in Abuja here. So it have to be collective effort of the people if we have to achieve the goal. It's not rocket science, for goodness sake. I said it several times in my series of press release. We need collective effort to be able to achieve security. And the people want to know the program of the government. The people have to be integrated. In short, our state government is on comatose. They are not working. The governors are not working. You can. I had one of the sitting governors had a security meeting with his security officer. He came up on social a press release that insurgents are invaded 4 local government. At the end of the day, the security, the commissioner or thereabout, the spokesperson of the security, who was him, he said, no, it wasn't what happened. Misinformation. Some of these governors, sometimes they raise issues, I don't know what they tend to gain. When this insecurity started in Southeast, we'll see how the Southeast governor deal with it. In short, some governors were setting up laws through the House of Assembly to checkmate kidnapping. Some governors have life sentences, while some governors have even death sentences. So the governors have to wake up and begin to work. There should be synergy. The center cannot handle it. We can't handle it all alone here in Abuja. So our problem, and that is why your Highness and the General Assembly is working assiduously. We are putting out some program and activities that we're going to integrate our people and reach out to the other ethnic nationality, because Nigeria will continue to remain one.
Are you doing it already, or you're about to do
it? We have commenced it. You will get to know most of their programs. We have started it. In coming weeks, you will be hearing our programs, because we want to deal with you have to uproot the problem from the root. The issue of insecurity must be dealt with decisively. It's not lukewarm approach. You can set up 100 committees here in Abuja, and if you don't connect to the people, it can't work. That is the main fundamental issue that need to be addressed urgently.
Okay.
Urgently. We need to make sure that our people come together. The people who are carrying arms, just like by an officer by PRO said, they are human beings. And people, in short, the family values are just nothing to write home about today. These are people that are born from family. They came from family. People know them, their various community. The man that is carrying arm in Otueke is coming from a family. There's no way the family people or any family or the community member is not aware that so person is carrying arm. And if, because the government is not talking to the people, people were not integrated to what they are doing. The masses don't even know the measure the government is putting. Even if they put in $10 trillion, and when the people is not being carried out, the effort will be, the money will go in vain.
Okay, so thank you so much. When we return after the break, what next? Where lies the place of institutions and the laws? Is it the powerful in the society or the institutions that will determine the direction of national interest and national goals? After this time out, stay with us.
To secure a good future, to secure a good home, is not only by saving monies in the bank. You can also save by saving energy. 1. Always remember to switch off all electrical appliances when leaving your workplace or home. Number 2. While at home or at workplace, switch off electrical appliances when not in use. Number 3. Use only LED energy-saving bulbs and energy-efficient air conditioners and refrigerators. That way, you will be saving lots of energy and pay lower tariff. Plus, the gross electricity supply in the entire country will no longer be disturbed. We all must develop a culture of energy efficiency and conservation to improve our energy system. Energy saving is money saving. This message is brought to you by Energy Commission of Nigeria, ECN.
Nigeria, our great nation with vast and rich land. Our people are strong and united. Our founding fathers, Sir Ahmadu Bello, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, and a host of others bequeathed us a united, peaceful and prosperous Nigeria. Let us honor them by living in peace with one another. Let us eschew violence, ethnic profiling, and religious bigotry. We must avoid hate speech and other forms of derogatory words against our fellow Nigerians. Let our differences in tribes, cultures, religions, or politics be the ingredients that make our unity palatable. Let us all join hands to fight our common enemies of insecurity, poverty, and unemployment. Nigeria is big enough for us all. Let's unite to make our country a great place for us all. This message is from Sir Ahmadu Bello Memorial Foundation in collaboration with Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying tuned. And before I go to Major General Augustine Ogundu and Brigadier General Kabri Galadanchi, let's go to Professor Mimiko. Professor Mimiko, one of the fundamental issues raised before we went on break is the issue of the spread of news, sincerity, and hate speech, fake news appears to be fundamental to this. And we ask this question. Most often, I throw up this analogy. You connect to disconnect, and you disconnect to connect. Now, fake news thrives because somebody wants it to happen, and someone allows it to happen. Between the dialectics of traditional media, social media, how may we manage this to ensure that it doesn't happen?
Well, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Let me just say, start by saying that the phenomenon of fake news is has become a big challenge, not just to the profession of journalism, but to social stability. The new media has created a platform, an opportunity for all manners, all kinds of personalities to become, if you will, emergency journalists. People will sit down in the comfort of their homes, cook up stories and post on social media, some of them going to billions of people within a twinkle of an eye. So it's a challenge, and it can really disrupt the social stability that we have in many societies. But we must also recognize that even the critique of the so-called fake news has been abused. On not a few occasions, governments across the world now, whatever they do not like to hear, whatever news items they feel uncomfortable about, they simply put such down as fake news. And therefore, the concept of fake news here has been distorted. So we have two dimensions of the problem. Those who just, become emergency journalists and push out, incendiary comments, several of them without any basis in fact. People who use the journalistic powers that they have without much responsibility. That is a problem. There's also the problem of the attempt by governments across the world to want to control and manage and distort news. And so when you have news items that government is not comfortable about, government simply say this is fake news. And so it's a double-edged sword. And it's important we find a way to begin some form of control. There's need for some modicum of control. Number one, in the manner we use the social media. Number two, government also must be more transparent and open in the way that public affairs are conducted. And I'm not just talking of the countries of Africa, but across the world. It's evident in the way people manage information all over the world that something is significant that has to be done on the part of government to ensure that people have access to the type of information that they require. That's what transparency calls for, and that's what democracy is all about. And so if we are able to approach all of this from these dimensions, we may begin to live over the phenomenon of fake news that has created a lot of challenge for social stability in many societies.
Thank you so much. Let's now go to Brigadier General Galadanchi. Now, listening to CP Frank Mba, I love the fact that you make reference to two clear countries, Somalia and Rwanda. If you go to Kigali today, you see billboards in most strategic areas, airports, streets, telling you, think about the genocide, think progress. If they have moved on to where they are and stability has returned, it therefore means established institutions are at play. Established institutions are in control. What is the problem with the country? Is it about the very big and mighty who have the monies, or is it about the institutions that are backed up by external laws, regulating and ensuring that things are put in proper perspective? Who takes decision about national goals? Is it the big wigs, the big and mighty, or the institutions like the police, the institutions like the army, the navy, the air force, customs, name it? Who takes charge?
You see, I was about to talk about this issue of social justice, managing diversity and inclusiveness. Sometimes I laugh at us, especially we the elites, who have a responsibility to give guidance to other citizens on how things should be. We are always putting blames on government, on politicians, but we are in the majority. Have we come out together and sit down and say, look, this is how we want our society to move? When we educate people about what is right and what is wrong, it will make them know how to select or elect leaders that can do something for the country. When you take Rwanda today, all those things you are seeing that are happening is because the Rwandans as individuals, as countrymen, they come together to accept that they have a nation and they need to work towards the nation. Look, there is no institution that is bad. The only thing is, who are the operators of this institution? When the Secretary General of Ahaneze was speaking, he said, initially, thank God he changed it, that government needs to go to the people. No, I don't believe government needs to go to the people. We who are the citizens, who our children are coming up, we should be the ones to make sure that that social justice is done within our communities. Let me tell you, I saw one small clip today, video clip, about a person who beat his mother. And the community, the men in the community come together, arrested that person, tie him to a tree, and beat the hell out of him. So it is not a question of government, politicians, or institutions. It is a question of what can each and every one of us do so that we can be able to. I mean, myself and General Ogundu, if we can sit down and say, it's all right, look, what is the problem in the southeast? What is the problem in the north? This is how we see it. How do you talk to your people to do this? How do I talk to my people to do this? Then we will progress. And that is why, Rwanda is progressing. And that is why Somalia and Sudan, and they are not going anywhere, because people will eat together and they will leave the place they have eaten and go back to their people and start putting hatred between different other group of people. So I think it is not an issue of institution. All the institutions we have, the police, the military, the other ministries, they are all perfect. The electoral commission, they are all perfect. But who are the people who are there? Are they committed to a better Nigeria? And unless me and you are committed to a better Nigeria, we can come out, we can sacrifice everything in order for the nation to move forward. Then we are not going to go anywhere. So the professor, the executive secretary, CP Prank, myself, all of us have to agree that Nigeria is more important than anything. Because if we are not there today, our children and our great-grandchildren will be in this country.
Thank you so much, Brigadier General Galabanchi. Let's go to Major General Augustine Agundu. You were former Commander Operation Safe Haven, and we ask, how did you operate? Were you operating imaginary? Did you have the right tools to work with? And I believe Operation Safe Haven was a collegiate of the security apparatus where all of you were working together in synergy to deliver on a particular good. At times we ask this question, is it that the police and the armed forces are not properly equipped? What really is the problem? Are they overwhelmed? How do we surmount this?
Very much. My experiences commanding that operation is a whole lot. It's a whole lot, and we successfully did what we did there because there was cohesion amongst all the various heads of government, or heads of administration, security agencies. Now, for the very first time, we saw where we did joint operations with all the services. We all came together, all the various heads. We agreed on certain parameters on what to do. And I was in charge, I was directing most of the affairs, coordinating most of the affairs of other security agencies there across the theater, covering Plateau State, Southern Kaduna, and the two local governments in Bauchi State. Now, it is that synergy, and I'm very happy with even what is going on now with this, the service chief, the chief of defense staff, and the three service chiefs, where they have agreed that jointness is the best way to go in tackling whatever situation that will come about. And like CP Frank said, which we have also witnessed, the IGP, since coming on board, has also taken up that particular line of action, that jointness is the best approach for us to tackle, because we have common problems. Now, one thing that is basic here in this country, no matter the vituperations that we hear, whatnot, is that the criminals, they have one language that they understand. They are even more coordinated than we, the elite. And that is a shame. The elites cannot come together to agree on certain parameters, certain things to do, but the criminals understand one language, violence. And they thrive on the mistakes of the elite. So that we're able to eliminate. And I took also this other, one of our doctrines of a whole of government approach and a whole of society approach. We carried everybody along. I was in touch with every member of every local government chairman. If something is happening in a particular locality, I will let him know that these are those who are culpable to that, and I want them. I was in touch with all the political leaders, and His Excellency the Governor of Plateau State, His Excellency the Governor of Kaduna State, and that of Bauchi, they gave us real political leadership in all what we require. And by the time we say that we are going out for criminals, we go out for criminals, we get them. And that is why Plateau State is and the whole of that area of operation is as peaceful as it is, relatively, as today. Do not forget that when the country did 2019 elections, under categorization of INEC itself, Plateau State and Southern Kaduna was on their red list. But there was a big challenge to me and all the other heads of security agencies, the police commissioners, the civil defense, road safety, immigration, everybody was on board. And we agreed in a coordinated meeting that I held that we must prove them wrong. And the elections were conducted across those the state, and even supplementary elections. Yet there were no single fallout of breakdown of security of security in that area. So coordination of activities of heads of security agencies is very, very paramount. Then we shared intelligence. Very, very importantly, we shared intelligence. We deployed if we have a common goal, we pull all our intelligence resources together. The manpower that we have, we send them to the remotest of villages. We established a joint fusion center at the Operation Safe Haven headquarters. And we are having a lot of input, and we are able to leapfrog forces so that before ever a situation will get out of hand, we're already nipping it. So this is how we're able to do under Operation Safe Haven, are able to get. So when we talk about whole of government approach, it's not paperwork, we must practicalize it. Everybody must be on board. And one thing that is lacking for us in this group, going by other conversation that we have, is patriotism. Patriotism. We have thrown it to the dustbin. There is a lot of angst. Our elite, they don't have conciliatory tone in their talks. And it does not help. It rather emboldens the criminals. This we must try to control. This one, if we must live as a people. This country is a great country. We have gone by the grace of God and by my military experience, I've gone around African countries. This country is one country that you can traverse the length and breadth by road, no matter the condition of the road. But most other countries, they cannot even, the state capitals are not even connected to the localities. So we must not try to pull down what is left of us. So this is very, very germane. We can, as a people, agree. Categorizing what we need now is that we must calm down the situation that we have today. Like I said earlier on, there's angst in the society. And this is where institutions like National Orientation Agency under the Ministry of Information comes into play. That agency must be so empowered to educate us, to go to, in fact, perhaps, excuse me, perhaps we might have to rule that a certain generation of us have failed the nation. And we now have to start the national, we should go for catchment areas. Let us go to our secondary schools. Let us go to the universities and catch these people young. Let them learn the values, because societal values are gradually diminishing. Parents are relegating their jobs to the state. Now a child cannot go, is recalcitrant at home, is the federal government that is the cause of it. That is not how we will go. This is not how we are brought up at our own. So this helped us a lot to do a lot of this I did a lot of unorthodox, what I can call unorthodox things in Plateau to tame the tide of troubles there. And we were able to achieve what we achieved.
When we return after the break, we shall be looking at one major concern, and they'll tell you that the worst democracy is still better than the best military rule. And we now ask, if we now have democracy, one of the concerns tonight has been the re-emergence of political rule in 1999 after prolonged military interference began to give rise to regional, tribal, and sectional agitations characterized by tendencies of inimical to the collective aspirations of the attainment of nationhood. Why should it be so? If we say democracy is just there for the people, is it that we don't like it? What's the way forward? After these reports, beginning with the report from Lagos.
Lagos, a state of over 20 million population, peopled by different ethnic groups from across the country. The pride of the nation, bubbling with life, but not a stranger to conflicts. In recent times, these are some of the emerging pictures and narratives on traditional and social media, a hint that Lagos, which has just emerged from the ruins and toils of the EndSARS protest, may not be exempted from the current wave of tribal agitations in part of the country, thereby putting enormous strain on national security and cohesion.
We should, in Lagos, as we should throughout the country, be able to know our citizens, to know where they live. We cannot fight insecurity if we don't know where Nigerians live, if we don't know them by name.
Beyond offering Nigerians a large market to trade and thrive, Mile 12 International Food Market in the heart of Lagos holds other lessons, not only on the importance of peace to national development, but also on how the country can better manage its diversity.
We are treating each and every one of us as brothers. We all of us here, both Igbo, Yoruba and Hausas, we are relating like brothers and sisters.
All the tribes in Nigeria, including my tribes, Northern, they are patronizing me, they are buying market from my hand. Why? Because whenever they come, I do play with them, joke with them, and that is what market needs.
And if it is Igbo man, the same thing. If it is Yoruba person, it is the same thing. The only thing that can help Nigeria to succeed is when we live in unity.
Nigeria, that's how we want Nigeria to do. If there is something happening in other places, so they have to immediately send the security to the place so that everything will calm down.
They say the era of exploiting fault lines to achieve political ends must end for the nation to flourish in peace.
From Lagos, we go to Kaduna, where the report says the state government in the first quarter of this year lost, the states in the first quarter of this year lost more than 300 persons to banditry and kidnapping, while 949, including minors, were abducted. The report.
Kaduna State has of recent been in news for incidences of banditry and kidnapping, especially along Kaduna-Abuja Highway, Kaduna-Birnin-Gwari axis, and most recently, the kidnap of students of Federal College of Agricultural Mechanization, Afaka, and Greenfield University, Kaduna.
If the kidnapper is on the run, the police need to be mobilized to get to him. But how does he move? These are fundamental issues I think the police have high command need to resolve.
In its routine security update, the state government says it is saddened by the incidences as it fashions out more workable strategies to stem the tide.
By the grace of God, if we all come together, work together, collaborate together, and pray for God's guidance, we'll get out of this.
28 of the 39 students abducted from the Federal College of Forestry Mechanization, Afaka, are still in captivity, while a total of 5 out of those kidnapped from Greenfield University, a private institution, have been found dead near the institution along Kaduna-Abuja road. Security personnel have intensified efforts at rescuing the abductees.
And the last report tonight is coming from Calabar, and it focuses centrally on citizens' cooperation with national security forces to tackle insecurity in the state. And it looks at the fact that the state government has made concerted efforts to combat crimes in its domain, and residents are applauded for the useful information offered to make the task of securing the state easier.
In recent times, Nigeria has witnessed a spark in criminal activities which has sent shivers down the spine of many. Though relatively peaceful, Cross River State has also suffered its share of insecurity, with kidnapping, robbery, and cultism being prevalent.
If you are in Calabar, you find out that there is never a day or there is never a night they don't have patrols throughout the night in all the areas. The strategies the APACO has adopted has made it so impossible for criminals to have a free day.
I feel that it's a time for prayer. It is also a time for action, because faith without works is dead. And it's also a time to synergize with other countries globally to ensure that we are not a threat to the global security that we seek to preserve.
I want to see a situation in Nigeria where the leadership of the government of Federal Republic of Nigeria take time out to make sure that the entire citizen of this country is secure.
It is often said security is everyone's business, and a good number of the people of Cross River State have lived up to this expectation through a synergy with security agencies, which has made the task of combating insecurity in the state a lot easier.
Peace-loving people and law-abiding people are actually assisting security agencies in terms of provision of quality intelligence to actually address the emerging challenges. And of course, these peace-loving people actually recognize the fact that the state is their own, and they understand the fundamental reality that it is only in an atmosphere of peace and tranquility that they can, of course, exercise the constitutional liberties.
Respondents are, however, calling on the state government to establish channels for people to ventilate ideas needed to tackle security challenges in the country.
And the report from Calabar marks the end of the reports tonight. And our Twitter handle is still open at Twitter Live NTA. You can send in your inputs from there, and our phone lines is also open. Let me begin this time with Professor Mimiko. Professor Mimiko, before we went on the reports, I raised a concern. They said military rule is not good, democracy is good, and it has come to stay. Why is it that during the military era, we don't hear all these agitations, but during the civilian era, it happens? And borrowing a leaf from a security expert right here in the studio, he said maybe it is the excitement of freedom, democracy. What should we do?
I don't have any doubt whatsoever in my mind that democracy is better, is superior to autocracy of any kind, military rule, whatever. There's no question about that. If you look at, if you do a survey of world history, you discover that democracy actually makes for development, it makes for stability. And under the democratic peace theory, people have concluded that democracies actually do not fight each other. And so there's no question about the fact that democracy is superior. If you take a look at, a cursory look at the entire globe, the most advanced societies today, the most stable societies today are democratic societies. So there's no question about that. That makes for other transition of power and people's participation in the affairs of their governance. Because democracy is about public accountability, majority rule, and popular participation. Any system that provides for those critical principles is democratic and it's superior. You see, the challenge, the issue, the problem arises because after many years of repression, after many years of autocracy, bottled up anger, bottled up tension, bottled up concerns of the people find expression in a democratic system. What democracy provides for freedom, it provides for public accountability, it makes, creates platform for people to express their views, their perspectives, and their desires. And so you find those bottled up emotions finding expression in the public domain. That's what we call the revolution of rising expectation. The little success that you encounter as society begins to open up serves as encouragement for you to come up with more important issues that have been of concern to you over the years, which you could not give expression to because the system of autocracy that was prevalent did not make allowance for that. Having said that, I'd just like to very quickly weigh in on the issues that had been raised a moment ago in relation to the nature of governance of our societies. I was just going to say that issues of governance, they have become scientific. It's not rocket science. There's no challenge that Nigeria faces today in the security domain that some other nations had not seen before and had not tackled. Insurgency, terrorism. A good example is Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, incidentally, under a democratic system of government, tackled the problem, the challenge of insurgency, and defeated the Tamil Tigers. There is ample evidence, emulation possibilities across continents. When the state of Israel was facing the Suez crisis in 1956, what did Golda Meir do? Golda Meir forgot all the partisan tendencies and divisions in her country, brought together a government of national unity, and was able to find a solution to that. After the resolution of that crisis, politicians began again to bicker. That is the station that we are in today. My hunch, my feeling, indeed my recommendation would be that all stakeholder summit has to be called. All political tendencies have to be invited. It is not a time that we must do the business of exclusion, the business of partisanship. the challenges of security facing this nation today requires that all hands must be on deck. And I'd rather see a situation in which the presidency or the president, as the case may be, brings all these tendencies together and have a discussion, have perspectives put on the table such that we'll be able to begin to look at possibilities of exiting this very, very unfortunate situation in which we have found ourselves. It is particularly heart-wrenching that university students are being murdered by those who kidnap them for ransom. I mean, we can't allow this type of things to happen. And so whatever that needs to be done to bring this to an end has to be done. Again, I emphasize, it is not time for partisan considerations. It is not time to walk in silos. This is the time that all political tendencies in the country must come together. Let us find a solution to this problem. Then politicians can go back to their business of bickering. But for now, everything has to be done to move this country out of this very, very difficult situation in which it is. But there's no question about the fact that a democratic system is superior to autocracy of any kind, and that's what history has taught us anyway.
Mimiko, and Steve will say, well, it could be the excitement of freedom, which democracy denotes. Well, let's go to Ambassador Obizoba before I go to the generals and Frank Mba, who is here with us. Before now, utterances was a core issue, etiquette of office. But today, we find within the space both state actors, non-state actors coming up with utterances that are inimical to the etiquette of office. How can we check this?
Thank you very much. Just like you likely said, we have issues. I enjoy what General Gundu said earlier when he was making a statement. He said that at a point, you understand that certain people at a certain age or level have failed the country. I don't want to use other neighboring countries. Nigeria is massive, enormous population. We're almost the fourth most populous country in the world. And our problems are, if we put our hands together, we put our effort together, we can surmount our problems. You find an elite. In short, recent time, you see a clergy sit in the pulpit to preach the gospel of God, talking and unguided statement, making unguided statement that insert even the members of the congregation and even those who believe that they are their role models. You will see an elder statesman sit down in the front of press, national press or TV, make unguided statement that incite the people. We have to put mechanism to check the excesses of, because freedom of speech must be civil. Democracy is the best to go. I listened to one of the senior lawyer and another statement the other day saying that the short Nigeria needs military to take over and divide the country into 4 portions and all that. It amazed me. I watched the level of his thinking, and by what comes out from his mind and ideas, I understand that he lacks capacity to even direct people from his own community to understand the fact that Nigeria what we need is cohesion. What to work in synergy. And any person, any individual or group standing to discuss issue or division of this country will be shooting itself at the toe, because what Organized and the Abuja Assembly is working assiduously very, very soon we'll begin to get our program is to make sure that Nigeria and the people, we are united. And we are united in common front. We fight our security challenges together. We'll discuss our prosperity together. Just like the last speaker said, we'll talk. Nigeria need to sit down and continue to talk to each other, but we must talk responsibly. That is fundamental issues that need to be properly addressed, because the freedom of speech sometimes has been abused to an extent. It has been abused to an extent, and that is the major challenges we are having, because people have access to online media, star platforms, social media, sometimes WhatsApp groups, and sometimes they circulate pictures here and there and make comments and all that. So, and if you see somebody you should expect to be your role model, or somebody that will speak that you understand, that you believe is another statement, come on the public domain to make unguided statement, you know that there's a problem fundamental. There's a serious problem, and we have to deal with that issue decisively. Unless If we don't deal with that most of these issues, we will not, no matter how effort we want to put, they will jeopardize it.
Okay. Frank, there's another dimension to all this. If you see we are strengthening national security and integration, we have situations in the country, we have cases, we have examples that we cannot mention here, where groups, known groups, are still parading the streets of Nigeria unchecked. They are well funded, and we hear their funders are known by even law enforcement agencies, but they are walking the streets untouched.
I don't think there is any known criminal that is walking the streets unchallenged. But in line with the ongoing discussion, and I need to weigh in very quickly on that. How come do we all on this forum and in most other fora, there's a consensus that democracy is the best form of governance? How come that our own democracy is throwing up all kind of discord, all kind of trouble, and is there something in the DNA of our own democracy that makes it incompatible with the normal ethos? I'm sorry.
Okay.
For me, again, I want to align myself with the two earlier speakers, and I want to expand the theory of overexcitement. Of course, Prof has earlier discussed that, where he said that people under the military regime were repressed for a very long time. So when democracy came up, they all threw up, they were free again. So that excitement, the newfound freedom, a lot of people began to misuse it. And you can even see that immediately after democracy came on board, there were a lot of different ethnic, cultural groups came up. Unfortunately, again, some of these were misused. And then you began to see people speaking responsibly. But for me, one of the major misnomer of our current democracy is actually the irresponsible, violent political culture. And this is a big challenge to our democracy, and our politicians must begin to think and learn how to play politics without recourse to violence. Look, in this country today, some of the politicians literally has got, or metaphorically, has got what you will call a nursery, where they breed young men and women and prepare them for the next election cycle, arm them, encourage them to join cult groups.
But we have laws that are supposed to check this.
Yes, you have laws. You have laws, but you deal with this. Let me tell you, okay. And that's why I keep saying about the problem-solving approach of law enforcement. No matter how good you are, how good your agency is, if the causative factors are not dealt with, as law enforcement agencies, you keep arresting, you keep prosecuting, but more people will keep appearing, springing up. So our politicians must review their style of politicking and begin to move away from that culture of violence to a new civilized culture of playing politics. We don't need to have talks. We don't need to have touts, breaking people's head, firing into the air, snatching ballot boxes. And then at the end of the day, and that is the most worrisome, you begin to reward these so-called gladiators, and then the younger ones begin to see, oh, so you can rise into prominence. You can rise to prominence just by engaging in violence. There are a lot of non-state actors today who were propped up by politicians. But today they have become problems to the political class and to the politicians and to the system. So we must gradually, while I agree with the general that the NOA must engage in a new socialization process targeting our younger ones, we must also find a way of also engaging our politicians to also begin to drop some of those political subcultures that is antithetical to democracy, to real democracy, and to the progress of this country, its social integration, its economic growth, and the unity of our dear country.
Okay. Let's go to Brigadier General Galadanchi. Yes. Let me send this question across to you from this perspective. We recently will be hearing about ungoverned spaces. A couple of weeks ago, just within the streets of Abuja, quite prominent, I cleared right on the steering and a couple of young men accosted me on uniform. And I asked, who are they? They could not explain, but yet they are operating within the vicinity of the Federal Capital Territory. Who backs them up? So the question of ungoverned spaces, how do we handle them?
I agree in totality with what CP Prank says about the politicians creating this problem for us. You see, when you are talking ungoverned space, you are not talking about a space that does not belong to the nation. You are talking about a space that the security agencies do not have enough strength to look over it. And like you said, right now, in the evening, in the night, like this time, the policemen do go out on patrol. But when they go out on patrol, there are not many, that many, that they can be in every street. And because these people who the politicians have empowered with these things, if they don't go out to kidnap people, to commit other crimes, they come to the cities. They look for crime to commit. That is why they stop you. That is why we are lucky that nothing has happened to you. But we have people who have been given uniforms. We have people who have been this. And that is why I did not agree with the fact, the issue of, because it is democracy, people, there is a bottled, the bottled emotions have been released. Those emotions shouldn't be criminal tendencies. If it is somebody looking for his right or this and that, it is different. Let me tell you, I don't know how people feel about it, but let me tell you, in the last 1 year, the political class in Nigeria have done everything possible to instigate a military coup in this country. I am telling you this. That was why they started fighting that the services should be removed, this and that, because at that time they thought they have created enough crisis by this abduction, by killing all over the places, to show insecurity, this and that, so that they can, which was happening in Nigeria since 1966, whenever politicians lose election, they create a situation where there will be change of government. Believe you me, the current service chiefs, I was discussing with some other people. Immediately they came in. I said, look, let me tell you, this problem of insecurity is not going to reduce. It's going to increase, because the reason why the hype of media about insecurity is the politicians think that they can bring in the military, they can convince them that the system is not working, that they can come back. But thank be to God, the military of today with all the people who are serving there, nobody is thinking about that misadventure. But otherwise, the politicians that you are saying democracy is for them, they are the enemies of democracy as they are today, except they listen to what CP Frank says and go back and sit down. I realize that and understand that elections are conducted every 4 years. And when somebody wins an election, if there are 20 people, only one person can win an election into an office. So unless you accept that you can win and you can lose. Otherwise, what we are going through now is that the political class believe that if we are not there, let there not be anybody inside that place.
Major General Augustine Agundu, well, there's no going back. As much as these challenges are there, you could see, you could feel it in the air that the government apparatus is doing everything to surmount it. Security meetings are being held, policy statements are being made, and that means that that social contract between those in government and those who are governed is still very much in place. And clearly, there's no hope lost. Nigeria is moving forward. What word of encouragement do you have for all of us?
First of all, let me touch a little bit on where CP Frank talked about on this ultra-guided statement by some of our elite, members of the elite class. I don't know, maybe he can also give us some insight. There are no sanctions to some of these unguided statements, all these utterances. Because if there are sanctions against some of these people who whip up unnecessary sentiment for their own popularity, then others could have perhaps take proper seat. And I believe that every office holder swore to an oath of allegiance. I think the content of that is enough for legal procedures to be taken against those who go against the oath that they swore before taking up whatever office they are. Because if not, we cannot imagine how a senior advocate of Nigeria in today's Nigeria can decide to utter those statements as if Nigeria is in isolation with other countries. And we are very happy the Chief of Defense Staff came out vehemently and very strong-worded, almost in total, at the same time, to condemn that and to let him know that he should go and look for another job. Maybe he doesn't have anything doing. Because we have come a long way as a people, and there is no way that we can go back. We can never retrogress. Nigeria is moving forward. We have done, a lot has been done. Look at the level of, and that is why for me also, like the unfortunate situation in the Northeast, and with the establishment of that development agency, we have to focus on developing the Northeast. Since a massive infrastructural development to encourage the people to stay and return back home, because that is going to help reduce the pressure on other states. It will reduce the issues regarding internally displaced persons and all whatnot. And this is also what needs to be done so that our people can remain in their states and in their homes, in their villages. Nobody wants to know who is there. All what they want to do is their normal farm work and their fishing and whatever that it is. So let us reduce the angst in the society. Let us control our utterances. Let us help this nation to grow, because giving in or out, if we continue along this trend, many more persons will go down the violent way, and that would not be good enough for us as a people.
So much. At this point, I want to thank Major General Augustine Agundu, retired, and also Brigadier General Mohammed Gabriel Galadanchi, retired also, for being part of Tuesday Live tonight. It was nice having you on the program. And let's go to Professor Mimiko. Professor Mimiko, you can't exhaust or the paradigm shift or the space, the elastic space within the gamut of patriotism can never be exhausted. Just in a few words, how best can we be patriotic in and out to join the onslaught to eradicate and sustain integration in Nigeria?
Well, patriotism is a two-way traffic, two sides of a coin. We expect citizens to be patriotic, but the state must also minister to the needs of the citizenry for them to be patriotic. You don't conceive patriotism in isolation. There's a social context for patriotism. The people must find, they must see the government or the state as actually representing them and protective of their interests. As long as you have a high level of public distrust, it's difficult to get people to be patriotic. And these things are not about harmonization. I made a point a moment ago that governance is scientific. There are a few things you must do to get XYZ results. If those things are not done, if, for instance, we have left the social space now so vulnerable that people get kidnapped, they get killed, they get murdered. A community that feels unprotected by government, it will be difficult to persuade such a community to come and show evidence of patriotism. If you want such people or such communities to be patriotic, then the state must do its own bit. It's a system of responsibilities and duties. The point is, we cannot conceive patriotism in isolation of the social context that gives rise to such a state of mind. And I think that's the task that the Nigerian state today must find a way to discharge. Security and welfare of the people must be seen to be the primary concern of government and of the Nigerian state. When you do that, the people of necessity will show evidence of patriotism. But as we speak today, people are withdrawing, both affective and the objective support that they have for the Nigerian state. And that's why we have the challenges we're facing in terms of security. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Femi Mimiko. It was nice having you on Tuesday Live, and I believe we enjoyed your line of thought. Thank you. All right, I'm back here in the studio. Obizoba. Well, they say groups are supposed to be formed to sustain and also promote the unity of the country. Why should we form groups that would think of balkanizing the country, in a few words?
Forming a group depends on the objective in which the group is being formed, because you may form a group and have a very bad objective to achieve in that group. The intent to execute the intention. We are talking about forming a group that will form a synergy, a positive note, to achieve a greater Nigeria. And that is what we are doing. Like I said earlier, our programs and activities will be on as organized. We both nations are very bitter. And we believe that if we come together, talk to our people, discuss with the states and the federal level, I think we'll find a lasting solution.
Okay.
Nigerian problem will be solved.
Thank you very much.
And I know we'll surmount our problems.
Okay.
Thank you.
Frank, well, it is already everywhere that you say the police is your friend, and some people will ask, is the police still our friend? In a few words.
The police will always be your friend, but like Prof would say, is a two-side of the coin. It takes two to be friends. Okay. You can have the police. First of all, why will the police always be your friend? The police will always be your friend because they will always be the ones you call upon when you're in trouble. A friend is somebody you can fall back on. A friend is that person you always rely, you call when you are in trouble. And a friend is that person that can put his life on the line for you. And so we're always the one that people will call when they're in trouble. We're the ones that have opted to die that people like you might leave. When a child falls into the world, when there's a robbery attack, there's an accident, there's a fire incident, there's a gas explosion, a pipeline explosion, whatever thing that is happening out there, the police will always be the one that they will call. But it will be difficult to sustain this kind of friendship when you deliberately, in a coordinated manner, go after policemen, take them down on duty, burn down their operational assets, and make the society vulnerable to further attacks. It will be difficult to sustain that kind of relationship. So we must work together as a people. We must close ranks, and we must continue to be each other's keeper, each other's brother, and each other's sister.
Thank you so much, Frank Kamba, CP, Police Force Public Relations Officer. It was nice having you on Tuesday Live tonight.
Thank you.
And also Ambassador Obizoba Chimielu, Director General, Strategic Planning and Implementation, Ohanezen Digbo General Assembly Worldwide. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's it on Tuesday Live tonight. We looked at strengthening national security and integration. Thanks for your time. Don't forget to support the NTA in the onslaught against rape and rapists to be a star. Bye-bye.